咁大聲啲係唔可以嘅，我會好辣嘅。OK， 我上個禮拜係解釋到希伯來書第10章第19節裏邊所講嘅，主耶穌係開啟咗一個又新又活嘅路，去到神嘅面前敬拜。
Last week I talked about, explained to you the Hebrew chapter 10 verse 19, where Jesus had opened up a new and living way for us to enter into worship.
我哋現代式嘅呢個自發式嘅敬拜咧，係幫到我哋可以係個別咁樣嚟到去親近神。
And that our instantaneous worship help us that we can individually come before God to worship Him. 入去咧，即係投入嚟參與嚟敬拜。It also helps us to really immerse ourselves into the worship.
但係今日我所講嘅係相反嘅。
And today, what I want to relate to you is the complete opposite.
開始嘅時候所講嘅係有相反嘅方向，現代式嘅敬拜嘅當中。
And I'm talking about that the worship that is going to opposite direction. That's the modern type of worship.
雖然我哋容易啲投入同埋能夠專心嚟敬拜神。
Even though it's easier for us to involve and also concentrate or focus on God.
但係近代嘅教會出咗一個越嚟越嚴重一個問題，就係敬拜只係缺少咗呢個敬拜最重要嘅態度，就係尊重。
And yet, there's a serious problem that developed in the modern type of worship is that they lack the very important element, which is respect.
係反映出我哋對神失咗一個敬意。
And that they have lost their devotion to God.
除咗唱詩歌之外，我哋嚟到神嘅面前，我哋冇覺得係神嘅同在，我哋去到佢嘅跟前去敬拜佢。
And beside the worship, when we sing praises to Him, throughout the meeting, we do not have, we tend to not have the feel that He's actually present with us.
個問題就係，因為我哋而家係活喺一個叫做後現代文化嘅當中。
And actually, we are living under what we call the postmodern times.
尤其喺西方嘅文化裏邊咧，係好特別，而家好顯著一樣嘢，就係我哋係厭倦咗習慣嘅傳統。
And it's very, very evident that among this generation that we are very tired of things that are traditional.
我相信你認識好多人啦，不過我相信弟兄姊妹唔係咁樣。我哋認識好多人咧，係咧幾年就轉工，幾年就轉屋，幾年就轉行，幾年就轉配偶，轉電話公司，轉教會。
And I believe that many of us are not like that, but a lot of people who, after a few years, they change jobs, change school, change a phone company, change even church.
因為我哋所接觸所有嗰啲，尤其是娛樂嗰啲娛樂圈嗰啲嘢，嗰啲咁嘅或者電子嗰啲嘢咧，係轉得好快啊！所以令到我哋咧個人咧啲係習慣咗要轉變，如果唔係咧，我哋就好厭倦嘅。
And all the type of media, what they transmit to us is change. They constantly change, and then when we feel that we are not changing, and then we got tired of it.
社會係咁轉變，但你睇睇咧，教會唔係咁快轉變嘅喎。
The society around us are changing, yet the church is not easy for it to change.
有啲教會仲係用翻幾十世紀之前嘅一個方式嚟到去操作同埋敬拜。
And the many churches still operating the way 100 years ago.
嗱，當然有啲教會開始轉緊好多。
Well, yes, many churches are starting to change.
但係大約20年之前咧，喺教會裏邊亦都出現咗個後現代嘅文化，後現代嘅教會。
And about 20 years ago, there is a postmodern church that rises.
一個新興嘅運動教會裏邊，佢就叫做新興，就叫新興運動，新興教會運動 emergent churches。就係呢個後現代文化所產生嘅呢一個教會嘅文化。
And this emerging church culture is actually a product of postmodernism.
佢哋係要吸引一啲厭惡咗教會呢個文化嘅嚟到加入去。
And they were trying to attract those people who were tired of the traditional church to come to their.
既然你要吸引一啲後現代嘅人咧，咁容易厭惡啲嘢嘅，同埋反傳統嘅，咁你要迎合佢嘅心理。
And if you are a person who are postmodern, and then you're tired of things that you're getting used to, and they will try to attract you to them.
再加上現代文化其中一樣嘢就係政治正確，
And also one of the things that they talk about was to be politically correct.
所以咧教會嘅操作唔能夠令任何嘅人去反感嘅。
And for that reason, whatever how the churches do or how they operate should not offend anyone.
所以教會嘅操作就係求人嘅喜歡啦。如果人哋喜歡乜嘢就採用乜嘢。
So the way they operate the church is to consider what is popular with the people, and if the and they will do whatever the people feel that
因為
they want to do.
你要吸引嘅人咧，從不同嘅教會嘅背景要轉過嚟呢一度嘅時候，你又要用呢一間教會點解唔合得埋？點解有不同嘅宗派咧？因為佢好多嘅夾埋咁啊，但係你要將所有啲人夾埋一齊咧，你有好多嘅妥協。
And you need to realize they attract the people from different mainstream doctrines, and that it's very hard for them to integrate together.
所以由於咁嘅緣故，你要達到呢個目的嘅時候咧，你用不同嘅手法嚟到去做，所以有好多妥協喺當中嘅。
And for the purpose of integration, they have many things they would compromise.
仲有加上一樣嘢，因為人好新鮮啊，而家人嘅係越新潮嘅越好啊，所以教會呢個新興教會嘅操作咧係越新潮就越好嘅。
And for that reason, people also in this generation, they feel that whatever is new is better. So for that reason, they operate everything in a new way.
所以英文裏邊所講話，they push the limit，即係話咧，佢哋咧要突破佢哋極限。
And so for that reason, they pushed their limit.
你知道有啲唔過得界嘅，但係咧你好想過，咁你就係去到界嗰側邊，去個邊緣嗰度。
And many things that there are boundaries that we should not cross yet. They try to push this boundary further and further.
其實你好想過，但係你知道唔應該過嘅，但係由於咁嘅緣故咧，慢慢我哋就推咗過咗界㗎啦。
You know that you should not cross that boundary yet. Slowly, by pushing a little bit by a little time, eventually you cross that
你
line.
知道你啲兒女又好，你啲配偶又好，如果佢要過呢個界嘅話，如果過呢個婚姻嘅界嘅話，成日想推到呢個邊緣嘅時候，始終會係撞板嘅。
And you know, for children or even for your spouse, if they push that limit to a point, you know that eventually they're heading toward trouble.
當然個理論就係話，我哋要發揮我哋嘅創意。
Of course, the theory is that they need to exercise their creativity.
神俾我哋無拘無束，係百無禁忌，因為聖經裏面所講神俾我哋自由啊嘛。
And that God has given us this freedom, that nothing should be a taboo to
所以
us.
新興教會裏邊係出好多不同嘅噱頭去吸引人，越噱頭多就越有吸引力。
And for that reason, these new churches, they have a lot of gimmicks and new gimmicks to try to
係
attract
一啲
them.
好前衛嘅教會，亦都係一啲後現代人嘅一杯茶嚟嘅。
And it's very avant-garde type of churches. It's also the cup of tea for these postmodern believers.
所以佢哋嘅操作係非典型嘅。
So that their operation is atypical.
最簡單嘅我屋企有一個兒女同我講，佢聚會嘅時候咧，我心裏睇到真係咁喎。聚會嘅時候咧，佢唔係10點鐘，唔係11點，10點半，唔係11點鐘，佢哋咧係譬如10點幾分或者10幾分，唔響正嗰個時間嘅。
And for example, some churches they hold a meeting not at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or something like that, but they hold their meeting like 10:05 or 10:06 or whatever.
你睇呢個杜魯多總統就係咁嘅後現代人，佢要做呢個咩 news conference 個咩記者招待會咧，佢嘅時間咧唔係11點鐘喎，11點幾分、10幾分咁嘅喎，你知唔知道啊？ 唔係正時間，就係呢個後現代人嘅思想，佢係要吸引嗰啲人，令到佢覺得咧，哇！呢個咁嘅呢個總理咧係好新潮啊，好有吸引力嘅，好 cool 啊咁樣。
And that you look at our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, you know that sometimes when he holds the conference, he doesn't hold a news conference at 11 or 12, but he'll hold it at like 10:06 or 10:15 or something like that, just to attract the attention of other people. So to make you feel that he is a very cool guy and very modern kind of person.
新興嘅教會可以喺聚會時間崇拜當中咧，攞一段時間嚟到停一停。 嚟到俾大家交誼嘅，可以飲下咖啡傾下偈，就在場當中咁做嘅。
And in postmodern churches, they even during worship, they would take an intermission where allow you to take a coffee or interact with other people.
我嗰個兒女同我講嘅時候，你都解釋翻嗰啲講説話咧，嗰啲好粗俗嘅言語唔響得教會講嘅，佢哋都可以講嘅。咁嗰啲會眾覺得哇好嘢喎，原來我哋講得咁嘅嘢嘅喎，你幾自由咧咁樣。
And some all relate to somebody also relate to me that during their service or during the time they gather together, they could even use core languages. So because they feel that wow, it's good that I can be so free to do such a thing.
我識得一個牧師，後生靚仔，去做一間教會。
I know a young and handsome pastor who's pastoring a church.
但係20年之前啊，突然間佢變晒型格。
And that was 20 years ago, and suddenly there's a change.
佢話我要做呢啲咁嘅電單車黨嘅人嘅工作，所以我教會就轉變啦。
And said, I want to do the work reaching out to these motorcycle gangs, so I need to change the church.
然後開始紋身。
So she started to have tattoos.
然後着啲衫咧打開手臂啊、胸口啊有啲毛啊咁之類嘅長鬚啊、戴耳環啊、頭髮變晒咧嚟到主日崇拜喺教會裏邊操作。
So he wear short and show his hair chest, grow a beard, a long hair.
就踩呢個哈利電單車嚟教會，後邊背住一個咧係暴露嘅美女係佢老婆啦，當然係。
And he come to church on a Harley motorcycle, and behind him there's a beautiful lady, hopefully is his wife.
佢吸引好多不同嘅電單車黨嘅人。
And he attracted many bikers to the church.
教會啲人唔知道佢有此一着，所以有啲人咧開始都嚇走咗，唔敢嚟參加教會。
And many of the people who attended church before, they were scared, and they no longer come to the church.
最後嗰啲人走晒。
At the end, they left the church.
試想下，如果你請到新牧師係咁嘅話，呢間教會點樣咧
You can imagine if you hire a pastor like that, what would happen?
有另外牧師介紹俾佢聽，佢話受聘嘅時候，佢哋唔知道呢個人會變成咁嘅。
And when you hire them, you don't know that one day he'll become like this.
因為佢要吸引呢啲後文化嘅人有參加教會。
Because he want to attract the postmodernism generation to the church.
而你哋呢班咁嘅人太過保守啦，神係俾我有自由㗎，你唔中意咩？你係唔愛惜人嘅靈魂。
And you all to people, these people here, you're too conservative, and that you don't like that because God given you this freedom. You don't like that because you don't love the soul.
基督徒應該係吸引晒所有人噶嘛，冇理由呢啲咁嘅人邊緣人士你唔要佢噶嘛。
And you want to attract, want to save souls, and so the people who are on the outer region, we should be reaching out to them.
教會啲人頂唔順，都係要離開咗。
So at the end, the people who attended church no longer can bear anymore, so they left.
有啲咁嘅新興教會嘅人嘅領袖咧，係好成功嘅。
Some of those leaders of the emerging churches, they're very successful.
因為佢吸引到好多不同教會嘅人嚟到佢教會啊嘛，好多人都係厭惡咗佢教會嘅傳統啊嘛。
They attract a lot of people because a lot of people were tired of their old church, so they came to his church. 如果你懂得呢個理論嘅話咧，你知道咧，你可以開間教會吸引好多人。有啲人用咁嘅方法去吸引嘅，因為啲人咧而家現代人咧最長係7年之癢咧，過咗7年之後咧，佢乜嘢都厭咗啦。咁連教會都係佢7年到都要轉一間教會噶啦。 And indeed, there's a lot of people who use this method to attract people and build a church because for the modern people, they do have this what the 7-year itch. And after 7 years, they got tired of everything and they need a change.
所以佢吸引咗好多嘅，尤其西方人啊，西方教會係咁啊，吸引好多人。嗰啲咁嘅牧師咧，成為大明星一樣嘅喎，好似個 rock star 呢個流滾樂星一樣嘅。
And a lot of the pastors of the churches, they were very successful. They attract a lot of people, and the pastors themselves, they seem to be like a rock star.
你認得呢個？我諗有啲人認得呢個，唔知道咩嘢。佢最近咧係吸引咗加拿大最紅嘅一個歌星，響間教會響佢屋企受洗添嘅。
And you might know who this person is, and that he recently attended the church of a famous singer in Canada.
He baptized a very famous singer. Well, if you know Justin Bieber, was baptized by him, and the church is big.
Justin Bieber 係俾佢係浸嘅，佢間教會好大。
點解我提出呢咁嘅嘢咧？
Why am I saying all this？
遲早，尤其是後生一代咧，我哋都會接觸到咁嘅人，佢會用佢嘅方法嚟吸引你參加佢比你間教會更開放嘅教會。
Because eventually, especially for young people, eventually you will come face to face with these type of people who want to entice you to the church with the openness of the church.
你教會太保守啦，太傳統啦，你教會係死㗎，唔好似我哋間教會咁開放。不如你嚟我間教會啦咁樣。
That you are too conservative, too traditional. Your church is dead. Our church is open, so you can come to our church.
今日嘅問題就話，到底係真係所有其他教會錯啊，而佢哋係對啊？係咪咁咧？
The question is that are they right and yet all the other churches are wrong?
所以我今日題目就係咩咧？到底乜嘢係又新又活嘅道理嘅道係指乜嘢咧？
So the topic today is that what is a new and living way? What is this new and living way?
喺呢個咁嘅要轉變嘅文化、要創新嘅文化當中，呢個又新又活嘅敬拜，係咪就係指呢一個新興教會嘅方法咧？
In this modern age where we want to see changes, it's this new and living way pointing to the way that the emerging churches are operating.
到底呢個主耶穌所開啟嘅又新又活嘅道路係一個屬於外在嘅環境嘅安排啊，還是係在我哋內心意念裏邊嘅流露咧？
That this new and living way of worshiping really just because of how we organize or manage our environment, or rather it comes from within.
我哋要重溫下敬拜係乜嘢一回事。
And perhaps we want to review what actually is worship.
中文同英文有啲唔同，因為中文呢個翻譯咧個中文嘅名詞係比較係嚴重啲嘅，叫做崇拜。
And the word that is used by the Chinese, they are a little bit different. It's even more, maybe
係
more
講得
solemn.
深啲咁多。乜嘢係崇拜咧？
It go even a little bit deeper. What is this worship?
崇呢個字就係滿有敬意、好莊重嘅、好嚴肅嘅。
The first word in the worship in Chinese means to be respectful and solemn.
個拜字中國人都好明顯知道乜嘢係拜。
And to bow is very clear how the Chinese know what this means.
係好恭敬咁嚟到行呢個禮，係屈膝嚟到下拜。
And it to salute and to bow down and prostrate.
歷代嘅中國文化裏面，我哋知道，如果下邊嘅平民去見上邊嘅君王嘅時候，或者去見神靈嘅時候咧，我哋會恭恭敬敬咁樣下跪，五體投地咁樣去叩拜。
And throughout the history and tradition, that when a citizen go to see to have an audience with the king, or to a temple to see a god, they would bow down and prostrate themselves on the ground. 我哋細個成日聽到人話去拜神拜神，我一聽就知道咧，佢哋去拜真係跪低喺度恭恭敬敬咁樣響神靈面前，要偶像面前去跪拜佢嘅。 At the young age, when people say they're going to worship God, going to the temple, we know that they're going there and will prostrate themselves on the ground.
但係呢個唔係西方嘅文化喎。 好多宗教嘅文化，但係西方呢個白人係冇咁嘅文化。
This is not really a Western culture, rather it's a culture of many other religions, but yet not the Western
所以
culture.
喺呢個教會裏面唔係好熟悉啊，西方嘅教會唔好熟悉呢個崇拜嘅意義係點樣樣。
And for the modern, for the Western church, they do not have a grasp of this word, what this worship means.
頭先講到啊，中國人嘅宗教係好熟悉，拜係咩意思？
And a lot of Chinese religion, they understand what means bowing and
其他宗教，尤其是呢個回教，對呢個拜啊、叩拜、俯伏叩拜係特別係重要嘅。
And for the Islam's, the religion, the Islam religion, to bow and prostrate is very important.
我1992年帶教會呢班青年去馬來西亞嘅時候咧，我哋住響一個神學院，隔離就一個回教嘅寺。
And in 1992, I brought a group of young people on a missionary trip to East Asia, and we went to Malaysia. And where we lived, or where we sleep, right next to it, there is a mosque.
我哋教會呢邊有幾個啦，有2位香港印尼嚟嘅，都知道佢哋印尼有好多回教嘅文化。其實佢哋朝頭早有一個人有5次嘅禱告啊，早上、中午、下午、黃昏同埋晚上，每日都去叫人禱告嘅。
And for them, that they have 5 times in a day that they would pray in the morning, in the afternoon, in the morning, at noon, in the afternoon, evening, and at night.
佢哋回教寺上高有個好大嘅喇叭咧，就播出啲咁嘅禱告嘅聲音啦，我都唔知講乜啊！就係啲人咧聽到嘅時候咧，就下拜嚟到祈禱咯，跪低嚟到咁祈禱俯伏祈禱嘅。
And during that, when the time is there, the speaker from the mosque would sound, and the people would know immediately at the time they would prostrate on the ground.
呢係代表佢哋敬拜佢哋嘅阿拉，對佢敬意同埋尊重。
They are expressing their respect and esteem for their God, Allah.
佢哋唔係好似基督教咁樣啦，我哋聚會咧一個坐又得，有企又得，乜嘢都得，行又得。佢哋好誠心嘅，個跪低晒嘅。
And then, unlike us, where when during worship we could be sitting down, standing up, walking around, doing whatever, but not them. They actually prostrate on the ground and worship their God.
有陣時咧，好大嘅廣場裏邊，當我哋祈禱嘅時候咧，你見到咧個跪低晒嘅，真係千萬嘅人咧係俯伏下拜嚟到去禱告。
And you can see it in the court that when it's time for them to pray, that you see everyone is prostrating on the ground and worshiping.
呢個就係敬拜、崇拜其中一個重要嘅意思，我哋係失落咗嘅。
And this is the very important element of worship that we have lost.
話你尊重到對方呢個神明咧，到一個地步咧，佩服到佢五體投地，你所有嘅連你嘅身體都要降服喺面前嘅。
And we are so respectful and fearful of the God that our body would prostrate on the ground.
你諗下啲其他宗教對佢哋嘅神明、對佢哋偶像根本唔係真神嘅，都可有咁嘅敬意。我哋對一個真神，我哋豈唔應該有更加大嘅敬意咩
？For the other religions who believe in the false God, yet they have this type of respect for their God, and how much so should we have for this our real and living God?
但係問題就係我哋同埋包括後現代教會人係好少見到嘅喎，喺教會裏邊呢個唔係教會嘅作風嚟嘅喎。
And the problem is that we don't see that our church or even the more postmodern church to have the style of worship.
甚至乎，如果你見到你去一間教會見到個人都跪低嘅時候，你覺得哇呢間教會又係咪唔正常啊？
And if for a chance we see someone who in these churches you see someone who are bowing down or prostrating on the floor, you would think something may be wrong with this
聖經有
church.
冇咁教過？係咪符合真理㗎？
It is really according to what the Bible says.
我希望大家知道係合聖經嘅真理嘅。
I want you all to know that this is really according to the Bible.
聖經裏邊經常係講咁嘅例子，不過我哋而家忽略咗，我哋睇咗當冇睇到。
And there are many examples that relate to us in the Bible, yet we seem to have neglected it or ignored it.
甚至乎我哋唱詩歌啊，都係咁樣啊！我哋唱好多詩歌係唱，我哋係要俯伏，我哋跪下嚟到敬拜嘅。
And even when we worship, we should some of them we should be bowing down and as worship and as we sing.
我哋可以舉手。
We can lift our hands.
我哋唱到話要舉手，我哋舉手；我哋話歡呼，歡呼拍掌，我哋拍掌。
And we could shout with joy, and we could clap our hands.
但係基督徒，當我哋唱到話我哋要跪下嚟到敬拜嘅時候，冇人咁樣做噶。
But when we sing the song where he said that we should bow and worship, none of the Christians do that.
我哋見唔到呢個字啊，睇唔到呢個一睇就跳過下一個意思裏邊啦。
And it seems that we have ignored those words and we just jump to the next verse.
我同大家重溫一下喺舊約裏邊，第一點就係過去嘅叩拜。
And I want to review with you the type of worship or bowing or prostrating in the Old Testament.
我唔多讀啦，我就略咁講啦。創世記第17章嗰裏邊講咧，亞伯拉罕當佢見到呢個3個咁嘅對神向佢顯現嘅時候咧，佢就立刻就俯伏響地上，佢就撲釘到地下裏邊咧去跪拜神啦。
In book of Genesis, where Abraham saw the 3 visitors, he came towards them and he prostrate fell on his face and worshiped them.
響呢個24章裏邊所講到，亞伯拉罕嘅僕人咧向神感謝嘅時候啊，係趴低喺度俯伏喺地上高嚟多謝佢嘅。
And also in the Genesis chapter 24, Abraham's servant also bowed down before the Lord.
呢個創世記第18章裏邊所講3個人啊，去訪問亞伯拉罕，其實係應當係3位一體真神聖父聖子聖靈咧，一齊去訪問亞伯拉罕。
And when Abraham was visited by the 3 visitors, should be the Father, Son, and the Spirit, he came and Moses came before them and worshipped them.
你都知道亞伯拉罕心水清㗎。佢唔會覺得呢個只係3位陌生人，因為神話明年我會翻嚟啊嘛，所以佢期待呢個日子。哇！突然間佢真係嚟喎，即係佢應承嘅有呢個唔係夏甲，呢個撒拉會生仔，明年會生子啊嘛。咁佢話我明年會翻嚟嘅時候，佢等緊呢個神會向佢顯現。
And Abraham at the time that it's very clear understand that God had promised him he will come back the year after because he had promised him that Sarah will bear him a child.
當佢見得到佢哋出現嘅時候，佢衝埋去俯伏喺地上高，其實係敬拜神嘅。
So at that time, Abraham was expecting them, and when they saw them coming, he rushed out and bow on the ground.
呢個一個正確嘅回應嚟，對神嚟講。
This is for God a correct response from us.
老雅各創世記47章裏邊所講啊，當佢臨死之前咧，佢扶着呢個杖頭響個床頭跪下嚟下拜對神敬拜。
And also the old Jacob that he was bowed down on the head of the bed to worship God.
我唔多讀啦，利未記講到啲利未人啲民眾俯伏在地裏邊敬拜神。民數記講到摩西同亞倫俯伏喺地上高。
And also in the book of Leviticus and also in the Numbers, the people prostrating or fell down face down on the ground to worship God. 申命記講到特別係神
呼召摩西上山裏邊去同佢相會。佢話40晝夜唔單止冇食嘢啊，其實佢呢度講咧係40晝夜係俯伏喺神面前啊，趴低喺神嘅面前嚟到去跪拜佢嘅。
And also in Deuteronomy that you see that Moses spent 40 days and night prostrate before God.
呢個就敬拜啦。
This is worship.
約書亞亦係咁樣，士師記亦都講到咁樣。士師記講到呢一個參孫嘅爸爸媽媽俯伏喺地上高敬拜。
And also that you can see in the book of Judges where the parents of Samson, they also prostrate themselves before the Lord.
聖經嗰個例子講到佢哋敬拜唔係只係唱歌，唔係只係歡呼，唔係只係舉手，其中一樣嘢佢係跪低喺神嘅面前，嚟到佩服降服晒神嘅面前。
And in the Old Testament, it clearly states that the worship is not only singing songs and things like that, but really they really submit themselves and prostrate themselves before their God.
大家可能見得到林聖梅就係 Delilah 嘅姐姐，林聖利嘅姐姐咧，往往佢嚟主日崇拜之前咧，佢去到座位嗰度咧，然後就跪低喺度祈禱。你記唔記得啊？有冇見過啊
？I don't know. You have noticed that Delilah's sister Jamila, often when she came to church before the worship, that she kneeled down at her seat to pray.
係唯一佢係咁做。
I only seen her done it.
但係佢所做嘅係對㗎。
But what she was doing is correct.
我解釋俾你聽啦，因為教會歷來係咁樣做嘅以往。
And actually, the churches before they do that as well.
林聖梅個禮拜就嚟緊，係今個禮拜嚟唔到，或者唔知有咩原因。唔知佢喺網上如果聽到嘅話咧，我希望同你講咧，你唔好放棄呢樣嘢，你所做嘅係啱啊，所以你唔好覺得尷尬，唔需要停止。
And I don't see her today, but if she were here, I would tell her, do not stop and do not feel embarrassed and continue doing it.
其實我細蚊仔參加教會嘅時候就係咁噶。
And actually, when I was young, churches are like that.
原來咧，好多人咧就係響入門口之前，喺前面嘅廳裏邊咧，就去到咧有個地方咧，攞一張叫櫃展嚟到咧聚會之前咧就跪低響度祈禱。
And at the front of the door, when people come in, they can take a cushion where they can kneel on to pray.
點解需要跪展咧？因為佢哋祈好耐，有時10幾分鐘、20分鐘，閒閒地。
And why did they require a cushion? Because when they kneel now for at least like 20 or 30 minutes, or even an hour.
我爸爸講到解釋俾我聽，佢一次去參加呢一個佢唔係參加間教會，佢去到有一次去探訪呢間教會就係窩打老道同埋蘇亞道交界，即係響呢一個培正中學德國所行培正嗰度讀書啊，或者啲響培正之道對面一間教會叫五旬節會。
And once my father visited a church, he doesn't go there, but he just visiting. That's a church that is the cross section of Waterloo and Sorry, and it's right opposite of Preaching Middle School.
間個教會叫五旬節會
And it's this Assembly of God.
佢去到嘅時候，佢話點解聚會就嚟開始冇人嘅咧？
And when he walked in, he said, the meeting is about to start, yet there's no one in the building.
佢問我搞錯時間啦，係咪早嚟咗啊？
Did I come too early? He was wondering.
冇幾耐，牧師走上台上高宣布聚會開始。
And a short time passed, and the pastor went up on stage and announced that they start the meeting.
突然間，啲人喺座位長凳嗰陣時候，啲人一個個企翻晒起身，坐翻起，零零落落起翻晒身。哇！咁多人原來佢喺度跪喺度祈禱。
And suddenly, at that time, they have pews, and suddenly you see that the head pop up in the pew. People were actually were kneeling down in front of their seat and praying.
原來有啲人咧，崇拜未開之前已經係準備嘅心，1個鐘頭之前咧跪低喺度祈禱，去尋求神。
And these people came to church an hour before the service, and they were kneeling down before God and seeking God for the whole hour.
我1975年嚟到加拿大嘅時候。 參加啲西人教會仍然係咁樣做嘅。
And in the 1975, when I came to Canada, a lot of the Western church are operating like this as well.
我哋1980年喺呢間教會有一個牧師同我講話咧，佢個外父教佢，如果你起間教會要起一個大嘅祈禱房，因為好多人祈禱嗰個時候，佢哋聚會之前去祈禱房祈嘅。
And one of the pastors just told me that his father told him that if you're going to build a church, you need to build a church with a big room for prayer because a lot of people pray at a time.
有陣時有啲聚會咧就係散咗會之後，有啲人仲留喺度1個鐘頭祈1個鐘頭禱嘅。
And some even after the meeting, they would stay behind for an hour just to pray.
教會其實係習慣咗跪低祈禱嘅，只不過我哋而家唔興。
And the church, they traditionally are used to kneel down as they worship and pray.
唔係等於唔應當，唔係等於唔應該做。
But no longer is fashionable for our church. But that doesn't mean that there's something we should not do.
響神總會作風好多時咧，就係主日講完道之後，佢哋會有個呼召，叫啲人出嚟。好多時啲人跪響台前高嚟到禱告。
And some of the churches after the sermon, they would invite people, open up the altar, and invite people to come forward. And a lot of time they would come and kneel and bow down in front of the altar.
如果你去參觀其他有啲舊啲嘅教會嘅時候，你見得到咧，甚至乎天主教一樣嘅，你見到長椅嘅後邊咧有呢個跪展嘅，佢翻轉頭嘅時候咧就可以跪低喺度祈禱嘅。
If you visit one of the older churches, you will see they have pews, and right up behind them, they would have a bench, a type of bench, where you could a soft bench where you could kneel down on it.
響教會長大，尤其是天主教會長大，好似我哋當中嘅 David Deandra 明師嘅老公咧，佢哋響天主教背景，佢哋要知道我講乜嘢嘢。
And for those who have a Catholic background, like the lady's husband David, he would know what I'm talking about.
唔單止咁啊，嗰啲人參加崇拜真係好尊重、好莊重嘅，預備佢哋嘅心嘅。
Not only that, when they come to service, they carry with them a sense of respect and solemnness.
聚會之前唔傾緊，喺個禮堂裏邊唔敢大聲喧譁，係單單禱告嘅。
And when they come into the service, they will not converse with other people or make a sound. They just come just to pray.
後現代人會笑啊，點解教會唔俾人食嘢就禮堂啊？佢哋準人食嘢，但係好多教會個禮堂係唔帶食入去，除咗聖餐之外。
And the postmodern church was to laugh at them, say, how come people don't allow them to bring food into the sanctuary?
咁專制啊，咁限制啊，咁冇自由啊，佢哋以為。
And so restrictive and lack this freedom.
但係呢個係代表弟兄嘅教會嘅人，基督徒對神嘅敬意。
But yet, this is really for the people to express their respect towards God.
我哋有一次係同咁多華人教會一齊走去安排呢一個大型嘅音樂會，走去呢個聖 Joseph Oratory。
And one time that we organized a music concert at St. Joseph Oratory.
我見到嗰啲人帶我哋去不同嘅地方帶禮堂嘅時候，去到咧佢哋就要整咁嘅嘢，係咩意思啊？
And a lot of times when we see people come into the service area, the worship area, they would cross themselves. What does that mean?
就算佢經過禮堂啊，佢啲即係其實認定咗呢個係敬拜神嘅地方，神嘅靈響當中同我哋同在，我對神有個致敬。
And yet, because they realize that even when they're passing by, that they're passing by a place where a place of worship, where God's Spirit dwells, and that's the reason why they need to show their respect. Even
仲有啲人啊，上呢個聖 Joseph 嘅時候咧，係跪上去嘅，你明唔明啊？
And some that when they come to this St. Joseph Oratory, they actually were kneeling, going up kneeling.
因為幾辛苦啊，咁去敬拜神。
How painful it is to worship God in this way.
但係呢個係人基本明白嘅態度對神，但我哋唔明白。
And this is a very basic attitude that people that they understood towards their respect.
如果人哋話你
God,
做
yet
錯
we
嘅
do
做
not.
做錯嘅話，
If you think they are wrong,
如果有人話你所做你教會所做嘅做錯嘅話，
if some people may say that what your church doing is wrong,
我想你問翻個轉頭啊，如果你去參加喪禮啊，你會唔會喺呢個禮堂裏邊大聲勸話？你會唔會帶你杯咖啡走去呢個裏邊嚟飲咧？呢個喪禮裏邊？
And you could ask that person and say, if you are going to a funeral, would you make a lot of noise and laugh in the service area, or bring food or coffee into this area?
為咗尊重去世嘅人，你都唔會咁樣做。
And for the respect of the people who pass away, you would not do that.
何況你對一個咁偉大嘅神咧？
And of course, then it's of course you should show that same type of respect.
當然嗰啲人都唔會
living
同我所
God.
講話攞死人同神嚟相比。
Of course, some people say, well, you compare that person to God.
但無論點都好啊，你明白我所講，佢哋唔明白就算咗數啦。即係個意思就話個敬意，你有冇呢個尊敬嘅心喺裏邊咧？
They may not understand, but I hope that you do that. That you need to have this respect.
再試想一下，如果你所着嘅衫去敬拜神啊，連你翻工嘅時候你都唔敢着嘅，驚住老闆炒你魷魚嘅話，你點咁樣走去敬拜神時候着咁嘅衣着咧？
And then you are actually wearing clothing that you would not wear to work, and yet you wear like that to worship God. How much respect are you showing to God?
因為後現代嘅教會個牧師台上所着嘅，可能比會眾嘅更加差嘅，唔係更加好
For the
嘅。
most modern churches, the pastor who are on stage, their clothing may even clothes worse than the congregation.
我最近呢個疫情裏邊係冇打呔。 由於緣故，因為大家好緊張嘅緣故咧，呢個係心理嘅問題咧，我係咧即係要輕鬆少少，等大家覺得唔係咁嚴肅。但係咧，唔係等於我同意呢一樣嘢。
And during this pandemic, that I have dressed down and not have a tie, because we want to convey to the people that there's a relaxed or easiness. So that not because I'm agreed to such an attitude or
因為我哋嚟到神面前係行禮啊嘛，向神係行禮啊嘛，你明白？我哋見神啊嘛。
because when we come in, we are actually seeing God, and that we are saluting our God and
你
paying
去見
tribute to
英
our
女
God.
王啊，如果你話 Q 就知啦，呢個每一個人都會着得正啲啦，係咪啊？唔會着得最隨便嘅係嘛？何況我哋見神咧？
And that we know that we need to dress up to someone who important. So more so we should do that when we see God, come to see God.
馬太福音第22章第8節裏面所講嘅比喻就係講到啲請人去參加呢個宴會嘅比喻。佢話有啲人好多人唔肯嚟啊，收尾就係勉強啲人翻嚟。
And Matthew chapter 22, that someone had invited people to a banquet, yet those people did not come, so they have grabbed anyone on the street to come to the banquet.
但係呢個主人對信實個王心嚟到，見到有啲夾硬請佢嚟噶啦，但係見到佢冇着禮服喎。
And when the king came in and saw that the people who they grabbed from the street, the guests they grabbed from the street, they were not wearing wedding clothes.
所以就捉晒佢哋趕晒出去外邊開哭切，聖經裏面所講。
And the Bible tells us that the king told the attendants to tie them up and throw them outside.
我哋好小心，我哋喺神嘅面前敬拜嘅態度係點樣？
We need to be careful what with our attitudes toward God. Do we come with respect?
佢話：如果你着得太靚嘅話，嗰啲人咧唔敢嚟呢間教會啊。
And some may say that if you dress too well, people are afraid to come to your
所以人
church.
哋點樣，你要着到點樣。
And because you need to dress the same way that other people dress.
呢個新希牧師嘅諗法。
This is the mentality of the emerging churches.
所以佢所着嘅比會友所着嘅更加係差。
That's the reason the way he dresses is worse than the
但係我哋
congregation.
需要明白一樣嘢，主日崇拜唔係外展嘅聚會，唔係團契嘅聚會，唔係去吸引外邊未信主人嘅聚會。
But you need to know that service, a Sunday service or Sunday worship is not an outreach or not a fellowship.
主日崇拜係特別係為一個目的，就係嚟到神嘅面前去敬拜佢，
The only goal of the Sunday service is the worshiping of God.
唔係我哋去吸引人。
It's not for us to attract people.
其他聚會可以咁樣做。
We could do that in other meetings.
你半夜3:57開始呢個聚會，神唔會干涉你。
And God will not interfere if you have your meeting in the middle of the night at the 3:57.
團契聚會、小組聚會，我所講嘅意思係，
Meaning that you have your group meeting or your fellowship meeting.
你所穿着係乜嘢？參加小組聚會呢個團契聚會，如果會友冇問題嘅時候就冇問題，我哋對你冇問題。
And you can dress whichever way you like as we're going to this fellowship or this meeting, as long the members have no problem with it,
但
and I
係
have no
主日
problem with it.
崇拜嗰收唔收貨唔係我哋自己嘅決定，都唔係會有決定，係神點樣決定。
Rather, it's acceptable or not in the service. It does not depend on us or on the congregation, but rather on God.
你諗一諗啊，後現代教會所做嘅，如果係被回教徒、天主教徒或者其他拜偶像人見到，會睇我哋係點樣咧？
And if the people from the Muslims or Catholics or from other religions come to see how the way that we worship in the postmodern churches, how would they think?
第一，佢哋就知道你哋呢班人啊，對神係毫無敬意。
The first thing that comes to mind for them would be that you have no respect or no regard for your God.
如果你所做嘅，你今日啊帶入去呢一個回教寺裏邊啊，你嗰啲回教徒會點樣對待我哋咧？
And if you do treat this the same way that you go into a mosque, how do you think the Muslim would treat you?
我諗我哋唔知可唔可以出翻嚟啦。
I'm not sure that we can come out of the mosque alive.
因為回教徒係對佢哋嗰個聖地係好重要嘅，你唔能夠褻瀆佢哋嘅阿拉嘅。
And for them, it's very important that you pay the tribute to their God and that you should not commit blasphemy.
標榜咁嘅行為嘅教會領袖嘅焦點，往往係放喺佢自己身上，嚟吸引其他嘅教會人嚟參加。
A lot of times, people who promote this kind of behavior, they wanted to have their attention or focus on themselves and not on God.
我哋需要明白一樣嘢，其實咁樣係奪取咗神嘅榮耀，將個焦點擺喺你嘅身上高，唔係擺喺神嘅身上高。
And you need to know that when you put the focus on yourself and not on God, you're actually robbing God of His glory.
你明唔明白？呢個罪係好大嘅。
And it's a very serious sin.
我哋唔能夠用我哋自己個人嘅魅力嚟去迷啲人，去陶醉啲人，去吸引啲人嚟去參加呢間教會。
We cannot use our own charisma to seduce and attract people to the church.
後現代教會裏面製造一啲叫做個人崇拜嘅異端。
And in the postmodern church, they have something called
personality cult。
personality cult.
好可惜一樣嘢，
It's very unfortunate.
往往到咁上下就有啲醜聞傳出嚟。
And from time to time, they will hear some scandal from among these churches.
頭先所講啲人啊， 都係有醜聞傳咗出嚟嘅。
And other people mentioned before they were involved in scandals.
我所講兩個牧師都有啦，有醜聞傳出嚟。
And the two pastors I mentioned before, they also were involved in scandals.
呢個係睇個人嘅態度嘅問題。
And this way we can see the attitude of man.
如果你用呢個方法，英文叫 charm people， 就係去吸引佢，用你魅力去吸引佢，吸引第二啲教會嘅人嚟參加你間教會。
And use image to charm people to go from other churches to come to your church.
有乜嘢可以阻止你用同樣嘅魅力去吸引其他第二人嘅老婆或者一啲單身嘅婦女咧？
If you can do that, then what can prevent you from using the same through the same way seduce other people's
一
wife
樣嘅方
or
法嘅就係
other
一樣嘅
single
方法
woman?
㗎。所以如果一個做教會領袖對呢一個忠貞呢樣嘢、專一呢樣嘢咧，我哋唔鼓勵人哋去忠於佢哋自己本身嘅教會嘅時候咧，我哋喜歡佢唔忠一嘅時候咧，我哋嘅操作就係會咁嘅方法去吸引其他人到我哋嘅身上過。
And then we are this is the attitude we have towards loyalty, and we use that to attract people to us. Then, and this is the atmosphere that we would create in our church.
遲早你都會遭遇咁嘅嘢，如果你後生嗰一代，你會遭遇咁嘅情況。
And for the young people, sooner or later you will come to face with this reality.
唔好上當啊！
So do not be deceived.
主耶穌所講嘅又新又活嘅道，唔係百無禁忌。
And this new and living way of worship is not that you have no taboo.
唔係講標奇立異，越新款越好。
Is that then you not always try to something new and that is better, that is new.
主耶穌所講嘅唔係團契嘅生活，唔係小組嘅查經。主耶穌所講係崇拜，去帶到至聖所面前，去到神嘅至聖所去敬拜佢。
And what Jesus talked about here is not for the fellowship of a small group, but yet that is the worship of God in the Holy of Holies.
呢大祭司好戰劍咁捧住呢個羔羊嘅血進到去，驚住有咩嘅閃失、有咩錯失嘅時候，就冒犯咗神，所以佢就好慎重嘅。
And the high priest is very careful as he takes this bowl of blood into the Holy of Holies in case something might happen.
而家所講嘅就係咁啊！你好似大祭司一樣，帶着主耶穌呢個聖潔嘅寶血進到呢個至聖所裏邊，你係咪要大聲喧譁、輕佻浮躁出言不慎，帶着咖啡去講粗口嘅至聖所裏邊咧？
And you as this high priest carrying this Jesus' blood in this bowl into the Holy of Holies, are you laughing? Are you chatting? Or are you being frivolous or impetuous or not careful with your tongue?
我哋要學習敬拜，
We need to learn to worship,
尊敬神，
to respect
向
God,
神屈膝俯伏降服我哋自己，謙卑我哋自
and to
己，
bow down and face down in front of Him.
跪低喺度係個敬意嘅表達。
To bow is to kneel down is an expression of respect.
第二點，
Second
短啲
point,
嘅呢個第二點，將嚟都係咁樣，永恆都係咁嘅敬拜。
that in the future, in eternity, it is the same type of worship.
原來有一日喺神嘅寶座上高，唔係只係唱歌、歡呼、拍掌。
And one day when we come before God, that we are not only clapping our hands and singing praises,
我哋係喺永恆當中要敬拜神。
and that at the time when we worship God,
同頭先所解釋一樣啊！呢個羅馬書第14章第11節裏面所講啊，而家喺主耶穌喺神嘅寶座之前咧，佢話萬膝都要跪拜。
that in the Romans in chapter 14 it says that one day every knee will bow.
你睇頭先上啲回教寺咁樣，其實有一日喺天上高就係咁啊！喺神嘅寶座之前咧，個個都跪低，嚟有佩服我哋所就拯救我哋嘅神，嚟向佢跪拜下跪。
And then what you will see at that time is what we see what the Muslims do, that everyone will be bowing prostrate on the ground before the God and submitting themselves to God.
腓立比書第2章第9節裏邊所講啊，主耶穌嘅名嘅一日咧，無不屈膝，我哋所有天上地下所有嘅人，即係話任何所創造人喺神面前一日咧，都要跪低嚟到敬拜佢。
And also in Philippians it says the same thing, that every knee shall bow in the name of Jesus.
啟示錄第4章第10節裏面所講，24個長老亦都係俯伏喺神嘅寶座面前敬拜佢。
And also in book of Revelation, the 24 elders as well, they kneel down before or they fall down before the throne of God.
我跳過所有啟示錄嘅經文，唔再用啦，所以呢度可以 advance 佢啦。我哋一係去到神嘅面前，
One day when we come before God,
一個榮耀嘅神，
a glorious
一
God,
個聖潔嘅神，
a holy God,
係好一個可畏嘅神，應該可以咁講。
is a God that we reverence.
點解我哋要會跪低咧？
And why would we would kneel down?
當然我哋話喜歡跪低啦，
Because we love to kneel.
呢個無可否認噶啦。我哋應當到時係敬拜跪低，但係有啲唔信神嘅喎，去到神面前審判佢喎，點樣咧？
Of course, as Christians, that we know that we should be bowing down, but also there are those who are unbelievers. Yet, what do they do?
有啲人咧，神問佢認唔認罪，佢唔認罪，企喺度好沙塵咁樣嘅。
And some people would say, "Do you admit to you? You confess your sins?" Say, "I don't admit my guilt."
喺呢個世界上都所講噶，有啲人係咁啊，唔信有神嘅，神係邊個冇咁神。
And this world, there are people who are like that. They don't believe there's a God.
但係點解聖經裏面所講話萬膝跪拜，所有人無論天上地下都要跪低咧？
And the Bible tells us that at every need, and no matter who you are, you will bow.
嗰班人應該唔會跪低啦，係咪咧？
Of course, those people that we just mentioned, they would not bow, would they?
聖經將佢包括在內。
But the Bible includes these people as well.
點解？
Why?
到神面前，你唔能夠唔跪啊！
Because when you come before God, you have no choice but
唔
to
係有天使嚟到捉住你跪低，
not because there are angels who come will force you to bow
你咁硬頸啊，點解仲去新神面前仲唔跪啊？咁啊，
and will not go at you and say, why are you so stiff-necked and don't bow before the one true God?
個意思唔係咁啊！
This is not what it meant.
原來當你去到神嘅面前啊，你會好恐懼嘅。你恐懼到個地步咧，你腳都軟晒，企唔穩嘅。
Because once when you come before your God, you have this fear that swell up in you to a point that you will automatically, voluntarily kneel down and bow
但
down.
以你試過，約翰試過，當喺異象裏邊見到神嘅時候，對腳突然間冇晒力嘅，聖經裏邊所講噶，個腳軟晒嘅，渾身冇力。但以你
And Daniel and John experienced that when they come before God, and they need feel weak and they fell down.
唔係講到神係鬼咁，好似鬼咁得人驚，唔係咁嘅意思啊！但係神咧係一個可畏嘅神，你望而生啊，你就心裏邊咧就不寒而栗，就哇！神咁偉大，我咁渺小，你就驚，你連腳都軟咗。
Not because God is just horrible like a monster, but yet it instills us this fear of reference to Him.
啟示第1章第17節講到約翰啊，老約翰見到主耶穌向佢顯現嘅時候，佢就腳都軟咗，仆喺地下裏邊好似死人一樣。主耶穌話：唔好擔心啊，唔使驚，嚟起翻身。
That in the book of Revelation chapter 1, you see that John, when he come before God, he fell at his feet, though he was dead. But God told him, "Do not be afraid. I'm first and the last."
聖經有其他例子講到咧，啲人咧神嘅榮耀充滿，好似獻殿嘅時候咁，列王記上第8章第10節裏面所講嘅，佢話啲祭司喺度做緊嘢獻祭嘅時候，突然間神嘅榮耀充滿嘅殿嘅時候咧，突然間佢哋唔可以企喺度嚟到供職，即係。我哋有時水掛佢睇唔明嘅意思，其實就係佢哋個神嘅榮耀充滿嘅地方嘅時候，佢腳都軟咗，冇辦法站喺仆喺地下。
In the First King chapter 8, talking about when the glory of God or the cloud filled the temple, the priests were no longer able to perform. They were no longer able to stand to perform their services.
啲人去捉主耶穌嘅時候，亦都咁樣發生係嘛？啲佢話要捉耶穌，耶穌邊個？
And it's also happened at the time when people come and try to arrest Jesus and ask who is Jesus? They
耶
ask.
穌話我是，係我。
And Jesus says, "I am."
呢度講我是，其實講到神就係我嗰個我是。突然間嗰個威力啊幾咁大啊！嗰啲人咧個個仆低晒喎。
At the word when he said, "I am," everyone fell down.
你仆低咗，你偷笑啦，唔死啊已經偷笑啦，幸運啊！
And just falling down, you're already lucky because you're not dead.
以賽亞書第33章裏面所講啊，呢個神係吞滅嘅火啊，冇人咁喺佢面前可以企立得住嘅。
In the book of Isaiah chapter 3, that God is the consuming fire, no one can stand dwell with this everlasting
所以有一
fire.
日最硬頸嘅、最驕傲嘅、最抗拒神嘅，響神面前一定要跪低落嚟，係佢冇辦法唔跪低嘅。
And no matter how unbelieving you are or how proud you are, one day you will bow before
而
God.
且佢哋到時佢哋會承認主耶穌真係主嚟㗎，係真神嚟嘅。
And at that time you will confess that God, Jesus is God.
太遲啦嗰時候，
But it's already too late.
我結束之前要講啊，好可惜，無論教會點投入去敬拜嘅裏邊，現代教會
And I want to say to you, unfortunately, that the modern church, they did not immerse themselves into worship.
我哋即敬拜當中好多啲做咗啦，
We have done many things right in our worship.
起身嘅敬拜，舉手敬拜，跳舞，有啲人會有啲拍掌會做咗，
We stand, we lift our hands, we dance, we clap our hands.
但係一樣冇做到嘅。
One thing that we lack
頭先所講到啦，就係當我哋講到跪拜嘅時候，我哋冇做到。
is that when we sing that we to bow before God, we did not do that.
講到話我哋要即係 prostrate 啊，五體投地啊，我哋冇做。我哋啲歌係真係講話 prostrate for 呢個 all hail the power of God 大哉咩神嘅中文唔記得咩名啊？嗰首歌講話啦 all angel prostrate for， 即係話個個撲省到有敬拜佢嘅，我哋冇咁樣做到。
And we did not do that to prostrate ourselves before God.
如果入回教徒入到嚟，聽到佢信咗耶穌，佢會咁做，但係基督徒唔會咁做。
For a Muslim who converted to Christianity, he would do that. Or she
我
would
哋
do
喺
that.
黑命櫃裏邊嘅時候，我哋會跪低嚟表示對呢個黑人嘅支持。
When in the Black Matters movement, that we would bow down for them, or kneel down for them.
Black Lives Matter 就係我哋會咁做，但係對真神我哋唔肯跪低，
But yet we refuse to kneel for our God.
醜唔醜？
Isn't that shameful?
我哋覺唔覺得慚愧啊？
Do we feel ashamed?
我哋會唔會覺得我哋真係仲係好驕傲啊？對神喺我佢面前，
Are we so proud of ourselves before
我
God
哋唔跪得低㗎。
that we cannot kneel before Him?
你知唔知中國人啊，新抱介入佢屋企裏面嘅時候咧，見到原來佢哋要跪過向個老爺奶奶跪低過嚟入呢個門嘅喎，就表示佢哋謙卑喎。
In a traditional Chinese wedding, you would see that the daughter-in-law would come and kneel before her new father and mother-in-law to show their humbleness.
我哋對人可以咁樣做，但我哋對神唔可以咁樣做。
We can do that for people, yet we cannot do that for God,
你
our
話
God.
慘唔慘啊？
And how terrible that is.
基督徒到咗乜嘢嘅地步咧？我問一問啊，你最後一次向神俯伏、向神跪低係幾時啊？
Let me ask you, when was the last time that you prostrate or bow down before God?
如果我哋冇嘅話，我哋重新學習啊。
And we have never done that, then we should learn anew.
因為有一日我哋見神嘅時候，我哋真係要咁樣做，
Because one day when we come face to face with God, we will do that.
唔好到時俾人夾硬嘅時候先咁樣做。不如而家開始，我哋學習咁做，要喺我哋敬拜當中，要學習屈膝俯伏有敬拜。
Let's today we learned how to kneel down and bow before our God
啊，
before
但
that
我意思
day.
唔係話每個主日崇拜咧都叫你請啲人個個跪低晒，唔係咁嘅意思啊。係自願嘅，佢哋要。
I'm not forcing you to do that in the service. Hopefully that you do it willingly from your own heart.
學習今日我哋今日學習下好唔好啊？
Let us practice and learn
又
about
係
this.
要自願嘅，我哋要播一首嘅詩歌，係一班香港嘅小朋友唱嘅詩歌，講到俯伏敬拜神，係 Freddy 教我哋嘅。
And we'll work out this song. It's a song that is from sing by children from Hong Kong, and that's taught to us by Freddy.
我第一次咧就俾佢響呢個點講啊，響你聽佢哋唱，然後跟住咧我哋可以彈琴嚟唱。
First, we'll hear just from the computer, and then we'll sing ourselves.
對唔住，一個咪咧冇辦法。